Assalamu alaikum, people. You're tuning into the Let's Walk podcast. I'm your host Ata, and today I'm joined by Yath Prem. You may recognize him as someone on YouTube, like medical YouTube space, where he shares about productivity, books, and has lately been sliding into personal finance and whatnot. So, Yath, thank you for being here.
Hi there, Atta. Thank you for having me. And yeah, as Atta already said, I'm a just graduated medical student here in London. So I'm going to be a junior doctor starting in July. And I do a few things on the side. So as Atta already mentioned, YouTube being one of the big things, and then also design and my newsletter as well. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I want you to start off with maybe how did you get into medicine, or how did you figure out that I want to be a doctor?
Yeah, sure. So I think here in the UK, you decide fairly early on. So when you're about 16 years old, what you want to do kind of with the rest of your life. And that's when you kind of pick your A level subjects, which are 2 years after you're 16, so until you're 18. And typically the A level subjects that you pick, so the four subjects that you pick, kind of lead you into the career that you want to lead into or go into. So you have to decide pretty young. For me, I think I've always kind of been into science. I knew that, I wasn't particularly a maths person. I found maths to be pretty easy, pretty straightforward, but I wasn't really enjoying it. So science was always my enjoyment. So I was naturally looking into science related careers. Medicine wasn't the first thing that I thought about. Engineering was something I thought about, and also more laterally, law and legal stuff related to science is something I've also thought about. But then I think I did a sort of weekend at Cambridge University when I was about 15 or something with a friend, and it was just like a taster weekend, going through some of the scientific stuff and some of like medicine related stuff. And then speaking to some of the people there, I kind of realized actually, you know what, medicine actually suits the kind of person I am and the kind of things I want to do in life. And I think that is also when I realized that traditionally medicine is like, oh yeah, you're a doctor, you help patients, you do this and you do that. But more and more commonly these days, doctors have a wider role and they take on numerous different things. So leadership being one of them, management being another thing. And then also if you're into like entrepreneurship, startups and any sort of side hustles, then I think medicine is becoming more and more of a diverse, sort of varied profession where you can do a lot of different things. And, having that realization quite early on is what, drove me into medicine. Then from there, it was just, hoop after hoop, just getting into medical school, then getting through medical school, and now graduating as well.
Wow. So that's a sort of a brief summary of getting into medical school and now graduating. So I want you to talk a little bit about when people they enroll into medical school, or be it pharmacy school, or like anything in the medicine side of thing. There's always that question lingering that now I have to sacrifice my sleep, social life, and like all other things for medicine. I want to know, like, how did you manage those things while being in medicine, because you have a vast experience. I think it's about 10 years or so. So like I think you must be in your 30s, or like early 30s or something. So like doing graphic designing, YouTube, and also doing that course on Skillshare. So like how do you do like all of these things?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually only 24, so I'm quite young. Well, I like to say I'm young. Um, and yeah, I have been a student, you could say, for about 10 years now, and have done exams for about 10 years now, and medical school being six of those 10 years. So yeah, I've done my fair share of doing various hoops and getting through various things. I would say, to answer your very first question, sacrificing things like sleep and being more stressed out because of like the nature of the work that we're doing and the nature of the studying that we're doing, I would say to that, it really depends on like what your interests and what your passions are. Because passion is such a big driver for anything in life. If you're passionate about it, you are not going to be worried about your sleep and the waking hours that you're putting in, lots of hard work, lots of hard hours. It will feel like it's going towards something rewarding. You won't feel like it's a burden. It's only when things start to feel like a burden the other things take a bigger toll on you. So let's say, during my most difficult times revising for exams, if I'm, say, sleeping just 6 hours a day as opposed to 8 hours, and let's say that thing that I was revising towards wasn't something that I was passionate about, then that 6 hours is going to show through. It's going to feel like a burden. I'm going to feel like tired. But if it's something that I really enjoy, if it's something that I'm really passionate about and I really, really want to do this, then that 6 hours feels absolutely fine, right? So definitely coming back to what you're really passionate about and what you're really drawn towards. So having that sort of discussion with yourself or having that discussion with your mentors to figure out if the things that you're doing are really the things that you want to be doing is an important thing to do very early on in whatever you're trying to achieve in life. And then secondly, like you mentioned, like being able to do all of the different things like YouTube, design, and a few other things, that really comes down to what kind of person you are again. For me, I've always wanted to be, not just good at one thing, but good at many things, be sort of like a jack of all trades type person. So for me, that kind of naturally, played to my strengths. That's the kind of person I wanted to be. So I wasn't really finding it as like a struggle or a burden to pursue other things and to devote my time towards a lot of different things. Secondly, all your standards of productivity and time management advice. Sure, you're not new to this space, but being really sensible and really smart with how you spend your time is going to be very helpful to you. For example, you could study for 10 hours and get very little done, or you can study extremely effectively for 2 hours and get a lot done. So it's how you spend your time and how efficient and effective you are with your time. That's going to determine how much other time you have to pursue various other things. So I think the approach that I took to medical school was pretty much Pareto principle, which is, focus on the 80%, focus on the 20% of like the most important, most pertinent things that are going to give you 80% of all results, right? So in medicine, when you're studying for medical school exams, there are certain topics, certain sort of parts of medicine that are reoccurring, really important for you to know really well inside out. So I spend the bulk of my time revising those really important topics, and anything that was super niche, super intricate, or very rarely tested in exams, I would tend not to spend very much time on it. If I were to spend equal amounts of time on absolutely everything in medicine, then yes, for sure, I would have absolutely no time to pursue anything else in life. But because I'm quite efficient and effective with what I revise and how I revise, that frees up a lot of time for me to do other things. So yeah, just to summarize, I think, follow your passions, because that way the other factors don't feel like a burden to you, and then be really effective and efficient of how with how you sort of spend your time. That's going to be really helpful to you.
Wow, that's interesting. And we had, I had Adnan A on the podcast. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He also is a recent graduate and a doctor, and he also has a similar. And I see a pattern where people who are into who are having different passions. They are more sort of have like a polymath kind of thing, where they are good at almost everything, and this is a pattern I see. But at the same time, I want to ask that, like you said, you might you'll focus on the things which are really important and which are highly tested, and then leave off the things which are not so important. And but there are still times where you might have certain things, where you might not like it, or you might not want to do it, but you have to do so. Like, what do you do to push through, basically train your mind to do hard stuff, in simple terms?
Yeah, so I think the way to think about that is something Ali Abdal, who I'm sure you would know, has often thought about it and said, is to just assume anything that you do is going to be fun. So there are going to be topics that you might not even like. For example, in medicine, there might be certain specialties that you have absolutely no interest in. But if you treat it as that, if you tell yourself, okay, this is not something I'm interested in, this is hard, this is not what I want to be doing, then it's going to feel even harder even more stressful, even more like a burden when you do it. But if you go into anything with a positive mindset, thinking that, you know what, okay, this might not be what I want to do, might not play to my interest, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to learn something new, and maybe down the line, somewhere in my life, it's going to be useful to me. If you have that kind of mindset where, sorry, if you take on anything as like a, you know, okay, fine, right in this moment, it might not be useful to me, but there might be a use for it sometime later down. But if you look at the overall bigger picture, is contributing towards what you really want to do, which is, I don't know, graduate as a doctor, engineer, lawyer, whatever it is. What you should do is look at the bigger picture and realize, what is this little component that I really hate actually contributing to, and you often find that it's contributing to something much bigger, something that you're really into, something that you're really passionate about. And then secondly, approach everything with a positive mindset and realize that even if you don't enjoy it, there might be something in there that you're going to enjoy, or the very fact that you're learning about it means that you're learning something new, and having that breadth of knowledge is going to be useful to you one day in some form or another.
Wow, that's some solid advice right there, because it's easy to get overwhelmed with things like no, I don't want to study this thing, but I have to, and that sort of thing. I want to with this move into a little bit about how did you get into design, like how did you figure out that like you wanted to go into design and then start off a YouTube channel and that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. So design again is something that I've generally been really into as a child growing up, and also in high school as well. So I think as a child, I was always really drawn towards things that looked good and things that sort of felt good. And, that's just one of those traits that I've grown up with. So I can't really explain why I have that sort of inclination to be drawn towards good design. But I generally just grew up with that. And then in high school, I naturally became the sort of creative guy in any group project, or the design guy, or the tech guy, right? So I would be designing websites, designing posters, designing social media content, or whatever it is. I would be the guy to go to for that. So I think going through high school, that design part of me, the design strand in me, became stronger as I was spending more time designing work in whatever thing that I was doing. Even if it would be like I don't know, a history project, I would bring some design element into it, or make my poster look better than everyone else's with design. So I was, putting some time and effort into design. And I think I've always been really into, I don't know if you know Johnny Ive at Apple, who was like the lead design guy for several years before he peeled off to do his own thing. And I've really been influenced by Apple's sort of design strengths, and the way Apple designs stuff, really slick, minimal designs. And yeah, so I've just sort of built that strand within me over time. And then when medical school started, so about 6 years ago, I dropped all of my design work because I didn't think there'll be room for it in med school. And I was right, there wasn't much room for design stuff in med school. It wasn't really, like a valued skill, or like, there wasn't encouraging me to do any design work at med school, and it was not really in any of the curriculum. But then when I was in third year, I kind of realized to myself, you know what, design is something that I really enjoy, but I've completely fallen out of touch with it. And I want to restart design because it's just one of my passions that I have on side. Just like people are into sport or music, I've always been into two things: tennis and design. So these are two things I'm really interested in a lot. So I rekindled that passion for design. I worked on a few startup projects for various startups. Then I started freelancing design projects, designing apps, websites, just on like Figma, Canva, and Photoshop, and then sort of earning some money for that. And then I realized that with time, my design was improving. So I put that into a newsletter with some designs that I was drawing for the newsletter, and now into YouTube as well. So I've brought it back to my YouTube and sort of tried to apply some design into that as well. Although they're not really a helpful answer to your question, Design is just something that I've always been into, and I've just kind of followed it through life, and I plan to do so as well going forward.
I see this pattern where you like usually people can't explain how they fall in love with things. It's like they. I think it's more of like you do it and then you do it more and then it becomes a part of you and then you don't know like if then you even don't realize that if it's a passion or part of you. So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that.
And to explain that, I don't think like anybody would be like oh step one find this or step two that kind of thing. And
But rather interestingly, to what you just said, I think it's all about finding those passions. For example, design is a passion that I found for myself, as is medicine and being a doctor. These are two passions that I've tried and realized that I really enjoy these. Then followed them through, and that's why I've been able to follow them through like my entire life so far because I'm so passionate. I'm so interested in those two things. So when people sometimes feel lost or they feel like they have no passions, it's actually about trying a lot of different things, going to, I don't know, taster weekends or open days or speaking to various people, mentors, reading books, doing stuff online. And then, after you do a cocktail of things, you realize there are some things that you really hate, some things you're a little bit interested in, and other things that you're really interested in. When you find those things that you're really interested in, you follow it through, you do it more times, you learn more, and you keep going. And that's when you kind of find those passions, which, in 10 years, 15 years, you can't really explain why it's your passion, but it's because you tried loads of different things, found these little things that you have some interest for, and then followed them through. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
so I ask this question, usually to people who are in the creative field. It's about being original. When it comes to design or even marketing, content creation, I always get this question, and I ask most of my guests who are in this specific niche is that you start off with an inspiration and then you slowly build off that. But there's always this question that am I being the first copy of XYZ, or am I really bringing out that creative potential that I have? Do you deal with that on a regular basis, or is that?
Yeah, I think ultimately everyone's perspective on life and everyone's way of doing things is always different to any other person. So I feel like I've had inspiration along the way, otherwise I wouldn't be here where I am. Even in medical school, the consultants that I've been with, or the particular teachers who've really inspired me to try harder, to do various things and get through med school. So I think inspirations in life is a huge factor for people succeeding in life. If you look at any famous person, any famous individual, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they have their own sort of people that have really inspired them to get to where they are in life. So I think having inspirations and using your inspirations is a great place to sort of start off, but then ultimately you want to end up in a place where you're really flexing on your own so opinions, your own perspectives, and your own way of doing things. So I think I've got to a place now where I'm flexing that exactly, like my own interests, my own passions. But definitely starting off, I've had my fair share of inspirations. For example, Casey Neistat, who you might know as a famous sort of vlogger on YouTube, who vlogged his way through New York City, been a huge inspiration to me actually starting my YouTube channel in the first place. Although I don't do any vlog style content at any level comparable to him, I'd one day love to just create vlogs like him, right? I'm nowhere near there, but that's one place I would love to head sometime in the future. So yeah, no, inspirations are really powerful. I think if you're not inspired by someone or something, then you're not really going to get far in life. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, what I really wanted to head towards was like how do you find like your style basically? Is it like the overtime thing where you constantly chip off at whatever you're trying to build?
Yeah, so I think this is a personal sort of answer, I think. But for me personally, I think your style comes out once you've mastered all of the basic skills. For example, some of the basic skills required to be a YouTuber is being able to talk in front of a camera. That's a huge thing. A lot of people can't do it. A lot of people are nervous to do it. And even when you do it, you sound very nervous. For example, if you look at my first YouTube video, you can really see that I was very much struggling to record that. I sounded extremely nervous. I'm now on video 34, and to be honest, I would say I still sound quite nervous. I haven't quite got over that sort of hump of being able to speak freely on camera. So just like that, so confidence being one arch, there are many arches of sort of basic stuff that you need to get over. And a few others might be being able to edit, another one might be being able to script, another one might be able to come up with good ideas. And once you get over all of those humps, all those basic skills that you need to do anything or in any field, then your character, your passion, your personal perspective will naturally come out. So I think to answer your question, it's a matter of time and repetition. If you start off being inspired by someone, then you will spend a certain amount of time mastering all of the basics. And once you do that, then your natural self or your natural differences will start to appear. And that's my personal answer to your question, and that's what I think happens over time.
uh, that's interesting, like when you master all the basics, and then you can build upon that. And I want to backtrack a little bit into your med school journey. I want you to talk a little bit about like how did you figure out that uh, the passions that you have, like for design and other stuff, like how do you merge that with medicine? Or did you find that like medicine was not a place where it was highly appreciated, or like there was a need for those things, so you found a creative outlets like a freelancing, that kind of route? Like how did you go about it, and how do you recommend people to go about it?
Yeah, I think this is interesting because um, sometimes you feel like you need to be able to merge things or bring things into one space and be able to say confidently actually that my X skill and Y skill do partner up and they go well together. But I would say, just pursue absolutely anything that you have interest in, even if they don't link up. For example, design off the bat, you might not think that it really relates to medicine. You might think, where is that correlation? How does it link up? It's two very different things. But actually, once you develop a passion in one thing and a passion in another thing, you naturally come up with ways to link them up or marry them together. For example, in medicine, more and more these days, technology is a big thing. Patient-facing apps, clinician-facing apps, and also dual-facing apps as well, big thing. And all of that requires a lot of great design, right? If you're a patient, user experience is a big thing. And if you're a clinician, user experience is again a big thing, but both parties, user interface is also hugely important. So when you think that looking at where medicine is heading with technology, apps, and the use of apps in clinical practice, then you kind of think, actually, wait, I'm a designer, I can design stuff, and I have a huge input here because I can advise clinicians on good design, on how to make things feel good to the user in the end. So, initially what started off as two very separate passions, actually now I'm thinking, design is such a huge thing for me to have as a doctor, because in the future, if I was to pursue a startup idea, I've got the design stuff nailed. I could work with designers, I know the language, I could speak the language. So just like that, if you combine any two skills, you will eventually find ways to put them together, even if initially they don't sound like they go together. If you take, for example, I don't know, coding, for example, let's say coding, if you're a programmer, and if you're a doctor, you might think, how does that go together? But actually, there's so many important applications of programming, artificial intelligence in medicine these days. So, whatever the two passions are, whatever the three or four passions are, you eventually find ways to link them up. But that's just one answer to this question. Another answer is, actually they don't have to link up. You can have two separate interests. You can have medicine as an interest, and then you can pursue, I don't know, knitting or tennis or some sort of sport, right? They don't have to always link up. They can be separate entities and they can still function very well in your life. So I think sometimes people do think that, everything needs to link up. But my answer is, if they link up, fantastic, great. And if you want them to link up, that's even better. But if they don't link up, then there's no problem there. Like absolutely no problem. I don't think everything needs to link up.
Wow, that's amazing. Like it brings a whole new perspective to the podcast where you don't need to merge cricket with medicine or like it's it's okay. They can be separate. And well, like I'm conscious of your time, and as we move to the concluding stage of the podcast, I have some questions lined up for you to bring some more perspective in life. So are you ready for those? Okay. So
Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah, definitely.
So I know you read a lot of books, and recently you released a video about yourself being more intentional with reading books. So I want I want you to tell me like what are the top three books you have read so far.
Yeah, so The Third Door by Alex Badian, fantastic book. The kind of person that would read that book is anyone who feels they're a little bit lost in life, or they feel like they're not getting where they need to be getting, or they feel like they're behind in life. It talks about, I'm sure you know the analogy, any sort of thing that you want to do, there's three routes in. There's the front door, which is the most basic way, the way everyone goes into. There's the VIP entrance, which is the way that if you have a little bit of status, a little bit of money, you can go through that door. And this is often in education. If your parents are doctors, then you could easily get into medicine because you have links and you can get work experience and so on. So that's another example. But then finally, the most interesting route in is the third door, the unorthodox way, or the way people normally wouldn't get in, but you can still get into wherever you need to go. So The Third Door is a fantastic book, one of my most favorite books. Secondly, The Courage to be Disliked. So if anyone is lacking confidence or feel like they don't want to do something because they'll get sort of judged for what they're doing, fantastic book. I think everyone should read this book, no matter what kind of person they are. It opens you up to a perspective where you realize that in life, you don't need to worry about other people. What they think of you is their problem. You don't need to concern yourself with that. So that's a fantastic book. And the third and final book is Shoe Dog, which is all about the founder of Nike. That's a book if you're into entrepreneurship like myself. Really motivational, really encouraging book. Definitely would recommend that. And I'm going to recommend a fourth book, just one book. It's a really motivational book. It gets you pumped up, which is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It's about a guy who was like a Navy SEAL and did loads of incredible things that completely seems unimaginable, really difficult things. And he talks about, the grit, the power to just power through different things in life. So yeah, those four books are fantastic.
I've heard of The Third Door. I've added to my list, and also heard of David Goggins. He's pretty famous. You get all those motivational kind of things on YouTube. And this brings me to the second question, which is, if you were to meet three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Sure, interesting. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and Johnny Ive.
Awesome.
Elon Musk because he's crazy, does a lot of amazing stuff. Johnny Ive because he's my design passion. Steve Jobs because Apple is an amazing brand. How he created Apple is incredible.
Wow. So this question is directly out of Tim Ferriss's book, but I'm going to modify a little bit. So if you had a notification which people could see first thing in the morning, every day, what would it say?
Oh, nice. So that's an interesting one. I would say it should just say, be grateful. Be grateful. Be grateful for, there's a lot of times in life where you feel ungrateful or you feel like things are not going your way, but so many things are going your way. For you to just wake up one morning or the next morning, that's something you should be grateful for. Not a lot of people get that opportunity. Like some people, in other parts of the world, really struggle just to make it day by day. But if you're doing that, if you have a roof over your head, if you're getting meals, be grateful. Everything else is just a bonus in life.
Wow, that's deep. So last question before we wind up is, if you were to go 5, 10 years back in life, what advice would you give to Yath Prem?
Yeah. So ask more questions and don't be scared to ask questions. I think growing up, I was extremely a timid person. I was a shy person. I was a very quiet person, so I was scared to ask questions. I always thought people would think wrongly of me if I asked questions, or they'd shout at me, or that I would make people angry. But growing up, when people like yourself, people younger than yourself, have asked me questions, how small, how stupid, how insignificant the question might be to me, I never got angry. I never felt like I was being, wasted of my time. So I love answering questions, and most people love answering questions. So don't feel scared to ask questions. I really wish I had asked more questions growing up as a child.
Wow. I think this is somewhat related to being like Desi or something, but I don't know. It gets in the like sometimes when you go to like a McDonald's or something, you don't feel like asking for ketchup or something. I don't know. I felt that, but I think this is something which a lot of people face. So yeah, where is the best place people can find you, come in contact with you?
Sure, youtube.com/Yath Prem is my YouTube channel. And if you watch any of my videos, then you'll see all the links to all of my other stuff there. So YouTube is the best place to find me.
Okay, so people listening and watching, till then, stay blessed. Keep taking action. We'll see you in the next one.